Hello there, everybody. This is Madhog speaking. The podcast you're about to listen to is, well, quite frankly, it is a bit of a doozy, let's put it that way. As in, to this day, I am still not quite sure it was a complete fever dream, and I have imagined it all in my feverish mind, even as I was editing this podcast. It is messy in many ways. It is the result of several sessions of recording being haphazardly cobbled up together. The first of which was recorded in June, I believe, so it's not even up to date. Even by our standards, this podcast is a bit behind the times, as it will be the case once you hear it. It is not a friendly podcast for newcomers of our YouTube channel, if we get any, that is. So be warned. By the way, don't you worry about this. This is not some hidden drama between me and Devar. There are no issues. There is no problem. In casa de MADPlay, everything is fine. It's just that sometimes life gets in the way and we end up recording multiple sessions in order to hopefully make a podcast out of it. You know how these things go sometimes. And if you don't, well, now you know. Anyway, enjoy this weird episode of ours. You see, Devar, normally, in falling down the stairs, a man would have a 50-50 chance at winning the falling down the stairs. But see, I'm not normal, I'm a freak. So you take my 50% chance at winning the stair falling, and you add a 70.5% to it, but then you factor in also the third man that falls down the stairs, which I decided is your brother, because he wants to join the fun, because he's a fun guy, and he's going to fall down the stairs, but he's not going to try and beat me falling down the stairs, because he knows he can't beat me, so he's going to try to beat you. So you take your 60-40% chance at winning, and it becomes at best a 33% chance at winning. You see, Devar, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you at sacrifice.
As I said, I cannot argue with those numbers. So glad we had this talk.
Keep it simple.
Good night, buddy.
Welcome, everyone, to the MADPlay podcast. And if you are still with us after that cold opening, first of all, seek help. Second of all, congratulations, you get to hear the rest of this episode. I promise, shall be slightly more sane.
To a degree.
Perhaps.
Let's just call it a degree.
So you take your 50-50 chance at this being sane. We do have a game to showcase tonight, don't we?
Yeah, we do have a bit of a game to showcase, yes.
I mean, I don't know why I'm asking you that. I am the one who provided the footage, so we had a surface-level deep dive on Dofus, the classic MMORPG by French video game developing studio Ankama. This week we are gunning for the sequel, Wakfu, which, as I've hinted last time, it is a slightly better, more advanced game, but it's still pretty quaint by modern standards. It is a very of its time MMORPG. Now, I do remember playing the open beta of it back in 2000 and something. Eventually it became a more complete game with a full story and side quests and mechanics that actually work, but it took some time.
I definitely remember me and Demonox playing with you at one time on this game.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We've had several instances in which we played this game and we recorded ourselves playing it. This one time it was with Demonox and it was chaotic.
As is wanton for us.
Speaking of things from their times, do not go watch those videos. I do not watch my older videos after a certain point in time. You just enjoyed a cute little animation of my character finding a coin on the road.
Neat.
The animations in this game are much better than they were in Dofu's, and admittedly the remake of Dofu's, which we showcased last week, again as a reminder, were updated to match the quality in Wakfu. Wakfu still looks more, I want to say, modern. Let's go with that, for lack of a better term.
It's close enough.
This time, I am playing a character from my favorite class in the game, the Ecaflip. Of course, it is my oldest OC, Militia Mutant. Actually, it's missing a letter, it's supposed to be Meowtant, but apparently that name was taken because I might or might not have had to resign to this game multiple times, because Ankama has this quirky habit of cancelling your subscription if you do not engage with it after 1 year. So
okay.
I have to remind myself to come back to this every so often, otherwise they will just cancel my subscription. I might as well expand a little bit on the lore of this series as it pertains the Ecaflip. Cat people. You know, we have the dog people in the Oginak, and of course we have the cat people, and they are constantly butting heads with each other because cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, yada yada yada. Oh, and by the way, I should point out, I have a couple of NPCs working for me. Yeah. They are basically my meat shields. Most, if not all, of the significant damage is done by my character. We touched briefly last time about how in the world of 12 personality traits are apparently genetic. Somehow, that is because all the classes, all the races, such as the Iop, the Oginak, and the Ecaflip, they all descend from the original gods. They are the children and descendants of the respective gods, which are named after the races, or I should say it's the other way around. The races are named after their respective gods. The god of the Ecaflips is named Ecaflip.
Okay.
And, delightfully, the god of the Ecaflip is a groovy daddy-o with 4 arms and neat sunglasses who likes to gamble a lot. So, the whole shtick about the Ecaflip is that they are a luck-based class, so their culture revolves entirely around gambling and luck. And I think, unlike the Iop, in which stupidity and daftness are considered genetic traits, which is just offensive on so many levels, the whole gambling aspect of the Ecaflip race is more cultural than it is stereotypical. As in, their society is built around it, but that does not necessarily define any and all individual Ecaflip as a gambling addict. It's just that their powers are luck-based. So that plays inevitably a role in the way they live. But really, an Ecaflip can be anything they want to be. They can be a merchant, they can be an adventurer, and I've seen several Ecaflips in the various animated versions. And they all get to be anything they want, unlike an Iop, which can only be a sports jock or a fighter or anything that doesn't involve using your brain. So that part is bad, but the Ecaflips, on the other hand, are very groovy indeed. there was this animated series titled Dofus, The Treasures of Korob, which expands very much on the lore and the backstory of the Ecaflips, because the protagonist is an Ecaflip. So that's why I am this bias for the Ecaflips. Originally it was just because, oh look, cat girl. Of course I'm picking the cat girl. But then I have all this context and the backstory to associate to Ecaflip society, and that makes my engagement with it a lot more involved. Okay, so Wakfu. What about Wakfu? Wakfu is basically Dofus again, but it plays better, its mechanics are improved, the battles are slightly more fast-paced, it has better animations and more variety when it comes to power sets and builds, but it's still very much a old-school MMORPG with its trappings and its limited inventories and its many menus cluttering your screen at any point in time, and I'm having deja vu because that's the exact complaint I've brought up last time already. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it.
It's a part of life.
It's the circle of life in MMORPGs. I guess that's it for our game feature for today. We can successfully put it aside and move on to our topics for this episode.
Time to blow.
An uninvited guest.
And yet you seem happy about it.
Oh my god! Welcome back to the MADPlay podcast. This is definitely still the same podcast. This is totally not a completely different recording session that we had to reschedule because my long-winded rant about Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers went on for far too long.
Yes, and I'm totally wearing the same clothes as last time we talked about that. Totally.
Devar, nobody knows what you're wearing, so that wouldn't even work.
You say it like as if that's not the point of the joke.
Damn it, I'm tired. Okay, so topics, right? We do have topics tonight.
Yes,
topics
we do have topics.
to discuss, topics that are slightly shorter than what I unfortunately decided to bring to the table of offerings. To the gods of podcasts, because that's how podcasts are made, by the way.
Yes, essentially, Madhog
Ironically, what I talked about was anything but essential, as you put it.
He basically brought a conversation piece that he thought was, like, just an appetizer, turned out to be the main course.
And the main course turned out to be an all-you-can-eat buffet for only $9.99. I am not letting this chance escape from me. But now that we have successfully finished digesting the main course, we may have room for just desserts. So, Devar, do you remember what topic you were going to bring forth onto the table of offerings to the gods of podcasts?
Yes, it's a very small morsel, so to speak.
I'm going to stop you right there. This needs a proper introduction.
Yes.
Devar's late to the party session, corner or whatever we want to call it. It's yet to be decided, to be named. It is the little corner of Devar who's always late to the party.
I'm so glad you remember my thing.
Devar's late to the party, the corner, the session, the portion of the podcast about Devar, who's late to the party. I'm going to stop right now. Somebody take this, make it into the song. He's probably late for the thing.
This morsel we're talking about.
Yum, yum, yum.
How familiar are you with a game called Wandersong?
Enough to know that it exists, it's relatively cute, and people generally like it. So not much.
In other words, you've basically heard the back end of it.
Yes, I think it's some sort of rhythm-based adventure game.
Wandersong is a side-scrolling puzzle game with musical rhythm elements thrown in for good measure.
Aha! Madhog is right. Madhog is always right, even when he doesn't know the topic.
Well, it concentrates more on the aspect of exploring and solving puzzles more often than the rhythm part. Though I'm getting ahead of myself in that regard.
Please, Devar, take all the time you need. We have to fill about an hour.
I'll try my best to at least take 30 minutes of that time.
He's being modest, folks.
Wandersong is a game created by one person called Greg Lobanov. Yes, it's Greg Lobanov.
That's a great name. Hold on, is it Russian?
I believe he's Canadian-American.
Okay, but does the V reads like an F?
No, it just has a V in it. So,
but does the V read like an F? Is it pronounced Lobanov? And you just misread it. That's what I'm asking.
No, it's Lobanov. I think that's how it's pronounced anyway, but because I cannot ask the person myself, we're stuck with...
Damn it! We're going to find out for sure! I'm searching on the internet, scouring the deepest recesses of Google to find out if this name is properly pronounced. The news we are nothing if not thorough.
Wandersong was also released in the late end of 2018, early 2019 on multiple systems, namely the Nintendo Switch, Steam, the PS4, and the Xbox One. So it's an indie title, because what else is it gonna be with a game called Wandersong? And plus, on first looking at it, you basically see it's made in the style of paper arts and crafts.
Well, with a name like Wandersong, it's either an indie game or a song by Oasis.
I would like to go into detail first, before I talk a bit about the game, is what went into the idea and the development of the game. It's a very simple story where Greg Lobanov went on a cross-country bike trip through the United States, and while on this trip, he was blown away by the kindness of random strangers that he has never met before on said trip. And after such a profound experience he had, he basically wanted to put that feeling he had into a video game. After a couple of failed concepts that didn't feel right with his vision, because he first tried to literally just make a game of biking across vast lands and just visiting people sort of thing, and that just wasn't going to cut it for his liking. And after some time of it going to and fro in his head of how he could refine this vision of his, he ended up being inspired by somebody, go with the idea of an adventure, and thus the seeds were planted to basically grow the concept much more further. And thus Wandersong came to be what it is.
Which, to be certain, it's Wandersong, not Wandersong, as in wandering around, not I wonder if this is a song or not.
Yeah.
Right? I'm glad that we took a moment on our busy lives to clarify that mystery, which no doubt was gnawing at the minds of our audience.
Well, it's in the title of the video, I'm sure.
You do know what kind of titles I put on my videos.
Yeah.
Do you not?
So the form this game took at the end of the whole journey, so to speak, is a story-driven game about a bard who basically has a dream, and he ends up finding out that the end of the universe is going to happen soon.
Mondays, am I right?
He is not the chosen hero, but because he has so much heart, and the person who was testing him likes him.
Just say the word, Devar. You know you want to say the word. Say the word. He has a lot of... Say it.
Oh, gosh.
Say it, damn you. Say it.
God, you put me in the spot of being Bart Simpson, except I forgot the line.
He has a lot of...
determination.
She tells him of a way that he could possibly save the universe.
Is it going to be some sort of longest journey twist in which the main character is not the chosen one? She is the one who finds the chosen one?
Partially, but it's more the fact you go in knowing that character is not the chosen one, because in the dream he failed picking up the sword. So the bard essentially goes unnamed until a certain point in the game where you have to give a name, but I will not get into that because that's more of a personal experience, and the name of your character gets chosen by what notes you choose to sing, which basically shows the letter that comes up.
Oh,
that is
interesting.
It's an example of one of many ways the game decides to give you choices in a way, by basically having the bard sing the choices. So if someone says, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" "Yes, I will." Or "No, thank you." It's one of those moments you realize it wears the charm on its sleeve.
This is a very charming game that's not afraid to inundate you with its own cuteness. It's a very cute game. From what little I've seen about it, even though it's not exactly my cup of tea for many reasons, it's definitely a very cute game. A very cute and charming game about empathy.
As well as going into the themes that violence and hatred solves nothing, and the only thing that remotely solves problems is talking it out and finding ways to help people and the world around you by the simple act of kindness.
So empathy and kindness save the world, hatred and violence destroy it.
Yes, and the game goes out of its way to basically show how such ideals are both the positive and negative can harshly affect not only the person themselves, but also other people around and the world at large. Especially since the world is coming to an end. And the story never lets you forget that. Every time they go through a chapter, it has the encroaching feeling of a despair that's oncoming, but yet everyone acts like, what can you do? Or they're ignorant about the end coming. One of the other things I really love about the game is that it's less about the journey of saving the world and the universe, but rather the emotional turmoil that goes into putting yourself out there, trying to make a difference despite the fact that you yourself are just one person with simple ideals, and the fact that people look to you and they don't really think much of you because you're not someone that's considered special or someone important to the world and its grand designs, and especially involving self-worth and feeling like you have meaning to the life you're living.
In the face of the vastness and coldness of the universe, we find our own meanings with our actions, our thoughts, and our life, regardless of how small they are compared to the rest of the universe.
It's quite a neat balancing act it plays, because you have all these very quirky moments, like you're singing with pirates on a ship at one point, and you even travel said pirate ship by singing in a direction.
A pirate I was meant to be.
I think they're singing about coffee.
Oh, that sounds fun too.
So one moment you're singing on pirate ships, another moment you're able to learn dance moves that you can use any time in the game, literally any time in the game, no matter how
inappropriate
it is during, like, say, you're meeting the king and suddenly you're dancing the caramel dancing right in front of him. And the king doesn't bat an eyelid and just goes on with the conversation like normal. So it's kind of funny how you got this quirky aspect to the game, and yet it balances out nicely with the serious moments that happen. There's even some neat details as well, where the bard will actually change his expression depending on the situation. And even if you're dancing, usually with a happy face, he will actually keep the expression that he's supposed to be depicting in the scene while dancing. So if he looks worried about something, he'll dance while looking concerned.
The dance of concerning. I jokingly mentioned Undertale earlier on with the whole determination bit.
Yeah.
But it is nice to see how the existence of that game has had such a invaluable influence to video games in general, mostly indie ones. It is one of the most influential indie games of the past decade, to say the very least. For every Dark Souls imitator or Metroidvania or roguelike, you have a game like this. A game that tries to be like Undertale, not necessarily a clone of Undertale, but a game that tries to tell its story and convey its message in a very specific way, but it still finds its own identity. If it's not a bad imitator, that is. Wandersong, by the way... Did I just say Wandersong?
Yes, you did.
Wandersong, by the way you described it to me, sounds exactly like this kind of game. The kind of game that wouldn't exist without the influence of Undertale, that definitely has similar themes to Undertale and a similar sense of humor, and an interesting way to juxtapose nihilistic notion of an imminent end with the more grounded necessity to cling on to life and have as much fun as possible.
And finding that harmony between one another.
You have to understand, I am spitballing here based on what you just told me.
It does hold some weight, considering that a game like Undertale came many years before this one.
It's been a few years, actually. Undertale came out in 2015. Indie games were never the same afterwards. Well, okay, if I'm being honest, half of them are still trying to be Dark Souls, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. This is yet another game that I feel requires you to know very little about the game's story and its characters, because it feels like it's very important to take that journey yourself, because every character you meet basically has their own personality that's unique, that you might latch on to or you might find interesting in some way.
So when you do go through the genocide run, this is going to be even more sad.
I don't think that it has a genocide run, but
Of course it doesn't. It will be too obvious.
I mean, I would have to do a bit of research to see if it does have a darker ending, like, if you ignore all the people, all the stuff that basically you're supposed to be doing in order to get the MacGuffin that you need in order to save the universe, so to speak.
If for some unexplainable reason you would love to play a version of Undertale that only has a genocide run in it, then Everhood is the game for you.
I thought I've shared this game because I thought that it's a game that I really like a lot, based for its story, its art style, and the quirky personalities, and the actual heart that goes into it. Not only in telling a story that feels like means something in today's age of people feeling like they're weak and not able to do much in a world that feels...
On the brink of death and despair? Yes.
Yes. But it also celebrates the one aspect that is a part of our world and a part of reality, and that is the surprising amount of empathy and kindness you can find from people that you never expect to find it in.
Okay, it is important to keep this in mind sometimes, that it is easy to lose yourself in depression and sadness when you hear all the news of everything that's happening in the world at this moment in time, or indeed at any other moment in time. But when you do that, when you lose yourself into that dark abyss, you tend to alienate yourself from one of the fundamental truths of humanity, in that people are still people. There are still people out there at the smallest possible levels that can still show kindness to complete strangers, that can still show empathy to fellow human beings. If we do not lose sight of that, then there might still be hope for us. Hope is punk as hell, by the way.
Indeed.
So I would be tempted to say that I don't believe that anyone feels the way you do about Wandersong. Did you see what I did there? I'm so smart.
Oh boy.
Let us pretend for a minute that I am an old person who never logs in on the internet.
Yeah.
The proverbial man who yells at clouds, right?
Right.
Let us pretend I don't know what memes are.
Okay.
Okay, are we pretending that? Are we in the zone?
I am seeing that, yes.
Okay. What the hell is Morbin Time?
Mary Poppins, Morbin Time.
See, that one I don't know.
I have no
Right,
idea
so
either.
I know what Morbin Time is because I know what Morbius is, and I think I understand why it is a meme. Because, let's face it, nobody actually watched Morbius, because why would anybody watch Morbius? Why would anybody want to watch a film starring Jared Leto, of all annoying, obnoxious, terrible actors? Why would anybody want to watch a Sony Marvel picture that's not Venom or Into the Spider-Verse, that's been in the works for seemingly half a decade by now, that came out literally on April the 1st, and it became the biggest joke and running gag since Bowsette, I want to say. I'm curious about this.
Yeah.
What do you know about Morbius?
Absolutely nothing.
It's a vampire film, I think. It's about a guy, a rich guy who has a rare blood disease. I did not do any significant research for this topic. This is just something that I am barfing up on the table of offerings on the spot for absolutely no reason. But apparently Morbius is about some rich Elon Musk type who wants to be a vampire, or maybe has no choice but to be a vampire, maybe something about his blood, and there's Doctor Who in it, and he says Morbin Time. You have no idea if I'm making this up or not, because you would have to watch the film to correct me, and you will not do that, because you are experiencing this thing entirely through memes, and I don't blame you. Let's be completely brutally honest here. Nobody would care about Morbius. Nobody would even remember this film if it didn't come out on April the 1st and everybody had a field day on it. Critics reviewed this film in an emphatically negative light. Then some people on the internet said, no, critics are just joking about this film being bad because it's April the 1st. So they took this ball and ran all the way to the goal with it. Morbius is actually the greatest film of all time. Even Marty Scorsese liked it. Morbius is making bank at the theaters. Hashtag Morbius sweep. Or something. It is such a weird yet strangely wholesome product of our times. And what's even better about it is that Morbius is much more culturally relevant than Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers will ever be.
Yay!
Which is honestly the worst thing I can ever say about a film. Morbius is more relevant with its memes than you. So, again, it's Morbin Time, and I'm shocked that this is still going on, and we are in June, and people are just morbing all the time. In fact, I would argue that the memes have really picked up speed a month after the film's release. Almost as if everybody had suddenly gotten the punchline to a setup that they did not get previously. So now everybody goes, oh, I get it now, it's Morbin Time. Look, I don't know anything about this, and I don't care to elaborate further or to do my research. Leave it to the professional meme scientists.
Yes.
I am not a meme scientist. I'm a meme urinologist. I don't know, do you have anything better to bring us home, Devar, than Morbin Time?
Let's see. My Little Pony, Make Your Mark.
This might shock and surprise you, but I think I have zero interest in pursuing G5 of My Little Pony. Shocking, I know.
I mean, it's not surprising considering the My Little Pony fandom seems to be mellowing out, let's say that.
I want to stress that the reason why I am not bothering with G5 isn't because I have mellowing feelings about G4. As I told you before, I quit that show at the beginning of season 8. Specifically, when they established the magical school of friendship. That's what I said. That episode, that premiere, I looked at it and said, okay, I've had enough of this show forever. Quitting this garbage. I am never watching the rest of it. I'm done. It was that bad.
Yeah.
But when it comes to G5, which I thought to myself, okay, this is a clean slate. We can have a whole new generation of characters. It would be so much better if they didn't even mention G4. Then I watched the first film, I guess we can call it, and I was not especially impressed with it for so many reasons that I think I would need an entire podcast just to explain why that film is terrible and has a terrible message that seems to ignore the reasons why fascism happens.
Yeah.
Pony guy who has a bit of a Adolf Hitler turnout.
Yeah.
And the mother enabled the fascism. Basically a neoliberal capitalist. And neoliberalism, as we all know because we are smart kids, enables fascism. Listen, folks, I know about 0% of you might have expected me to utter the words neoliberalism and fascism in the context of My Little Pony. Listen, you would have to watch that My Little Pony G5 film to understand what I am alluding to. Or at least I would have to explain in details what this is about. You know what? I'm going to try and do that, actually, because... So, help me out here. The plot of G5 My Little Pony is that the pony races are segregated from each other, right?
Yes.
So friendship is not magic. In fact, friendship is a bit on the dead side of things. So you have the Earth ponies, all 20 of them in the entire world, by the way, in their own trendy beach town. And then, on a 20 minutes jog from where they are, there's the unicorn kingdom.
Or village, rather.
With all 10 of them living inside a wood. And then take 2 meters up into the sky. Oh, look, the Pegasi are all there. All 10,000s of them. Because they live in a giant urban center up in the skies. So already I see a bit of a problem with the size and the scope of the world and all of that in between. But now we get to the plot in which the rich capitalist lady who's running the city effectively, like Disney with a certain Floridian town, she makes money off of spreading unfounded fears about the other races so that everybody buys her faulty Elon Musk-y gadgets and whatnot. Of course, she is wrong and proven wrong, but then there is her stupid, dumb son who wants to be the sheriff, but is too stupid and dumb to be the sheriff, so he's the deputy. The sheriff is off town to try and chase the main character who decided on her own that she doesn't want any of that segregation. I'm going to find the Pegasi and the unicorns and save Equestria or whatever this place is.
Yeah,
we're
going to basically reform and get to find out what the problem is and talk it out and
yes,
become
because
friends
as
again.
we all know, racism is nothing but a misunderstanding waiting to be resolved. This is also, by the way, a problem with G4 My Little Pony, in that it is a very simple, insultingly simple, liberal, democrat way of looking at society. All the racism and the fascism, that's just a misunderstanding. If we explain calmly to them why they are wrong, they will definitely vote Democrat. I mean, they will definitely understand friendship. You see the problem with that mentality coming a million miles away with G5 My Little Pony as well. When the deputy guy suddenly has to be the sheriff and Mother convinces him, to take over as ruthlessly as possible. So he does that by becoming Pony Adolf Hitler. And I do mean that he dresses with an SS uniform and all that, and uses that fear that was already spread over by the Bush administration. I mean, by his mother. There are obvious parallels here.
Yes.
To become Donald Trump. I mean, to become the dictator of Beach Ponytown.
Yeah, Mayor Time, they call it.
Whatever it is called. So in the meantime, the main heroine befriends everybody in a unicorn place and Pegasi York, whatever you want to call them. And it was all very easy to do, apparently, surprisingly. We're all friends. Oh, it turns out we are so much alike, you guys. It turns out all those literal centuries of unfounded fears, they can just be resolved with a song or two. So they come back to Maritime, or whatever the place is.
Maritime Bay, yeah.
Whatever. In time to defeat Pony Adolf Hitler. And then he's so very sorry about it, I guess. And he doesn't get really punished for it in any way whatsoever. We just have a small scene in which his mother basically ditches him. And that's it. So do you see why I find issues? Why I take issues with the way all of My Little Pony tends to address deeply rooted societal issues such as racism or indeed fascism enabled by neoliberal capitalism, in this case literally.
Yes.
And yet at the same time, this film's solution to the problem is that, we just talk about it, because it's all a misunderstanding in the end. I hate that.
I understand that. I was basically going to say first, since you brought up that, because this is probably a show that mostly kids would watch, sort of thing. That mostly it's for them, so hope they can change society in a generation.
No. Sorry, Devar, to interrupt you again, but you cannot use that excuse just because it's a kid's thing. That means it's allowed to be stupid and give the worst possible, most useless message.
Well, no,
that's
of course
not an acceptable excuse. I know it's My Little Pony, but all the same, if you're going to talk about fascism, which they did, they literally had the freaking antagonist wearing an SS uniform, for crying out loud. That's not subtle. That's not subtext. If you're going to do that, then go all the way. You don't need to be R-rated to explain your children why fascism is bad. Right?
Yes, I counter that by saying I was not the one giving the excuse. I was more saying what could possibly be going through their heads to make that choice was pretty much what I was going for.
Because it's the safe choice. It has always been the safe choice.
Of course. So anyway, the sequel thing that they decided to do, the special called Make Your Mark, I believe it was called. It's just a continuation of that story, but this time it's trying to figure out why is magic suddenly glitching out, and suddenly we have racism back again.
No.
The unicorns and the Pegasi are causing so much trouble because they have magic, sort of thing. By the way, I don't get why the Pegasi need magic to fly, because it shouldn't be magic to fly.
If I have to put on my glasses here, the laws of aviation say a horse is not able to fly. Those wings are too small to carry the body of a horse. And yet horses do not care about our laws of aviation. Pegasi clearly have magic, otherwise they would not be able to manipulate the weather.
Well, yeah, I was expecting that to be the part of the magic they would be...
And also, they wouldn't be able to fly because their bodies are too fat. They're fat.
Fat asses.
They got a 50-50 chance of winning.
But yeah.
Technically, there are a lot of birds that have wings and don't really fly.
Oh God, I remember something now that embarrassed myself in front of somebody when I said... When I said the phrase to my fiancée, I basically said to her, penguins aren't birds because they can't fly.
That is indeed very dumb, Devar. I don't know this man. I've never known him. There is one element about G5 that intrigued me ever so slightly, in that they are finally giving magic to the Earth ponies. Because let's face it, all throughout G4, the Earth ponies had the short end of the stick. Earth ponies are basically the backbone of the country. They are farmers, they are workers, they are essential workers. They are trying to get unionized, but the unicorn corporations are hiring union-busting agencies. The Earth ponies are vital. They give everyone food, right?
Yeah.
I respect the fact that they have a better connection with the Earth because they are Earth ponies. The problem is, and I am looking at it from a video game standpoint.
Yes.
You have the Pegasus class. You can fly, you can manipulate weather, which means lightning attacks, which means water attacks. That sounds very, very neat.
Yeah.
And then you have the unicorns. They can teleport, they can use telekinesis. That's your wizard class. And then you have the Earth ponies. What do they do?
They're the basic fighter builds.
No, not even that. No, the Earth ponies are basically the NPCs you receive quests from. Look over there, it's Farmer Bill tending to his orchard. Hey, Farmer Bill, do you have quests for me? Bandits have invaded our village. Please take care of them, mighty wizard unicorn person. So, the Earth ponies don't really have anything that makes them stand out on a more obvious manner.
Of
it's
course.
not. If this, again, if My Little Pony were a video game, nobody would have any inclination to pick up the Earth Pony class. That's not fun. Well, it is fun for somebody, but not everybody likes to play farming simulations.
Of course not.
So I am glad that G5, for all its faults, is at least trying to take this inherent Earth Pony connection with the Earth and run with it. They are turning them into druids or earthbenders, depending on how you want to see it. And that could be interesting and fascinating, and making Earth Pony on par with the other classes.
Yeah. But yeah,
Do they follow up in any meaningful way with that cliffhanger in this one?
As far as I saw, from the Make Your Mark episode special sort of thing, they showed that basically, the Earth ponies had problem with the unicorn and Pegasus because they had magic and they were causing problems. No. And because
the first film again.
Because the Earth ponies didn't have magic, but now they have to live with unicorns and Pegasus, basically causing them trouble. I put with quotation marks. But of course, by the end of the film, the Earth ponies get magic.
Okay, how come G4 is the show in which all of this racist nonsense is part of its distant past, and this G5 is all about that racism?
As far as I know from the MLP fandom, everyone's a bit confused about that and wants to know why, it basically took, 10 centuries back, essentially.
I refuse to believe this is set in the same continuity, by the way.
To be honest,
if it were to be set in the same continuity, then I would be asking stupid questions, such as, but what about Princess Celestia and Princess Luna? Who's racing the sun or the moon? This is actually one of the main problems I have with G5. It is so boring and mundane as a setting. Where are all the mortal beings and mythological creatures, the deities racing literal celestial bodies and creatures of chaos? No, instead it's just My Little Pony Tales with more racism. Oh look, it's the Earth ponies living the trendy life in this cool little beach city resort or whatever. And I guess the Pegasi have internet influencers and whatnot. Ooh, this is so much cooler than G4. Epic fantasy world? Nah, nobody needs that. Let's have an half-baked story about racism instead. Everybody wants to see that.
Oops, all racism.
Is there anything even remotely interesting about G5 so far?
I can only think of one thing, and that's basically they left it on a cliffhanger. Basically,
another one.
Yeah, they left for a cliffhanger of revealing a possible villainess that's coming to it, but that's all it is so far.
You mean to tell me that this special doesn't have an actual antagonist?
If you count the racists of the town, yes.
Hey, remember when G4 tackled racism in a couple of episodes and then never again?
No.
Yes, exactly. It was that memorable when G4 did it. So of course G5 has to dedicate its entire running time to the topics of racial segregation. When a zebra shows up in this world, they're going to set the planet on fire.
Oh gosh.
My Little Pony is the last franchise who should ever tackle racism, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Oh boy. So yeah, that was a thing I watched recently. Still give it a chance, of course, to see if it goes anywhere, but so far it's been fine.
Flimsy.
But in a, like, I'm on a shaky bridge. Like, I'm just waiting to see if I'll fall into the gorge, or if I'll make it across, worse for wear.
In fairness, there will never be a phenomenon quite as strong as My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It just came out at the right time, at the right place, for the right people, well, the right people, to latch onto it.
And
you cannot see the quotation marks, but they are definitely there.
And also with the...
Something of that magnitude can never be replicated, especially more than a decade later, where everything is consumed twice as fast.
Yeah.
There is an essay waiting to happen there about how this media-consuming binge train that we all seem to be on doesn't leave room to breathe, doesn't quite leave room for new fandoms to blossom, and that's a long-term issue in its own right. Then again, the half full glass side of this is that we don't need a new brony fandom. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. It was fun the first couple of years, then it became utterly toxic. I'm just glad that at the time I had the wherewithals to keep my distance and observe like some sort of British explorer with a stereotypical colonialist hat, looking at the local fauna. Yes, I see. I'm writing all this down and using it as fodder to write my Tarzan novels. Did I say novels? I meant fanfictions.
Of course.
I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just going to quit while I am ahead. And I've been ahead for a lot of this, haven't I? Let us find our way towards the end of this podcast, mercifully, because I think this might be one of the wildest ones we have ever recorded.
I would say might.
It might be. It's My Little Morbin Time. Mighty Morbin Pony. Oh gosh, no. I'm just going to get to the end. I have been Madhog Die Master.
And I've been Devar.
What the heck was this? Did we talk about My Little Pony, or did we all just wake up from a fever dream? This podcast is a fever dream for me. You didn't really talk about the My Little Pony special at all, actually. You just said
it exists.
2 things about it. It exists.
It exists. There's racism and cliffhanger.
Ooh. My cutie mark is my own angry face.
I just have a cutie mark that just basically looks like a big happy dumb face that sings.
Okay, can you explain to me why the fear song in the My Little Pony film is the catchiest song in the entire film? It's almost as if they want people to be recruited by fascist organizations. Jeez, guys! Don't make the fascist song sung by the fascist the catchiest. You should not have given him a song at all, in fact. Come on.
But it's the villain song.
He's not really the villain. His mother is.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Capitalism is a disease. Fascism is the last stage. The cure? Wandersong. And friendship.
Friendship and cuteness.
And decapitation.